The great sort of paradox of Queen Elizabeth's reign is that while she was the most visible figure on the public stage for as long as anybody, no one actually knew her. She felt that she was a symbol, and that if she were to sort of become more familiar, that the magic would go. She was never predestined to become the Queen, but her uncle, who was the older brother of her father, was due to become the king and became the king. That was Edward VIII. But there was a constitutional crisis in the 30s when he fell in love with an American divorcee, so he was forced to choose between her or the monarchy, and he chose her. And so at the age of 10, she suddenly became the next in line to the throne. When her father died, she was in Kenya. She came back to be greeted by this sort of phalanx of old men in top hat and tails. One of them was Churchill, who was her first prime minister. Those Britons had seen her father as the king, her uncle as the king, her grandfather as the king, her great-grandfather, Edward VII, as the king, and even her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and to the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong.
Television created these milestones of her monarchy. The first coronation to be televised and indeed watched by millions around the world. It was the first great global television event. So somebody at the BBC convinced them to do a documentary film. It was called The Royal Family. And it was the first real glimpse of them in their family environment. And unfortunately, instead of it being sort of this candid and warm milestone in television history, what it actually did was sort of break down those barriers of inscrutability. Many people believe that it sort of led then to this whole notion of the press in the 70s, 80s and 90s actually sort of turning on the royal family. They didn't turn on the Queen herself, but they certainly went after her family.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
Diana died in 1997. The whole episode, you may remember, sort of cast the whole country into this grief and rage, really. And, at first the anger and despair turned on Prince Charles. But then it slowly gathered against the Queen, and it was really the only time in her reign that the public was losing support for her. She gave a very measured and clever television address to the nation about Diana that was very sort of solicitous of her and captured the moment.
So what I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness.
As her reign progressed, I think the whole society saw that what they had with the Queen was a national treasure. When she took office, there was still the semblance of a British Empire, and that obviously diminished greatly. One thing that isn't perhaps well understood about the Queen is that she was a very pious woman, and she saw her commitment to the monarchy as sort of a sacred promise she made to her God. During her reign, there were calls at various times for her to abdicate so that Charles, for example, then a young, spirited bachelor, could become the king, or, when William came along, or when George was born. That sort of notion completely misreads who she was. What was driving her wasn't the trappings of being the Queen and the luxury and all the rest of it. It was what she felt was her sacred duty to her subjects, to her people. She would never, ever have abdicated. She's reigned longer than any other British monarch, dating back 1100 years. And no one thought that the reign of Queen Victoria, which lasted 63 years, would ever be surpassed, but Queen Elizabeth did achieve that in 2015. She was this sort of continuous thread through incredible changes in British society. We've always associated the monarchy with Elizabeth. Now that dynamic changes. Now that Charles is the king, that feeling towards the monarchy inevitably is going to change. And one has to sort of think that it's not going to be quite as solid as it was given Elizabeth's incredible reign and her duty to it.